Hi guys, Narelle Cook from Canine Pharmaceuticals. So just how clean do you think your house is when it comes to chemicals? Well, if you're curious to get an insight into what might be going on, then please join me for this week's Thursday's Thought. So this paper was published in August of 2024, so it is literally hot off the press. And what they wanted to do was to monitor for environmental contaminant exposures in our dogs to get a better understanding of what we're being exposed to as well, because it's well known that, us and our pets were exposed to just hundreds of, potentially toxic chemicals on a daily basis. So in this study, they attached little silicone tags to the collars of the dogs, and the dogs wore those for 5 days, and then they did an analysis of all of the chemical exposure that those silicone tags contained. I'm not going to go through the whole study because it's quite involved and in depth, but long story short, they found that dogs were exposed to 8 commonly found classes of chemicals. So this included pesticides, brominated flame retardants, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, polychlorinated biphenyls, personal care products, alkyl phenols, organophosphate esters, and phthalates. So we know from the human research that these chemicals have some really nasty health effects across multiple systems of the body. So things such as endocrine and reproductive system mutations and disruption, liver dysfunction and toxicity, respiratory and cardiac disease, neurotoxicity and neurodevelopmental disorders, among lots of other health complications as well. So we know that in the human health space, and they're saying that many of these diseases are similar in dogs as well. When it comes to chemical exposure, we breathe it in, so inhalation, we can ingest it through the food that we're eating, and we can absorb it through our skin. Now, the main reason that I wanted to bring up this topic today, and it was just great that this was recently published, is that when we've got a dog with chronic skin issues or chronic ear infections or chronic immune issues, most pet owners will automatically jump to changing the diet. But honestly, I believe that environmental exposures is probably the bigger trigger of those chronic health issues, particularly skin issues in our dogs. I should also say this study just reinforces what was found by the Environmental Working Group like several years ago now, where they tested the blood and the urine of a large number of dogs and cats, and they found that they were exposed to a vast number of chemical contaminants on a daily basis, and often at levels higher than what we're exposed to, which makes sense because cats and dogs, they're low to the ground, they lie on things, contamination sticks to their coats, then they groom themselves and ingest it. So and often things fall from the air downwards, so they're more likely to be breathing in particulate matter from that sense as well. The other thing that was recently found, if I just flick to it, this was a couple of years ago now, but they discovered that forever chemicals are likely in pretty much all dog or pet foods because of the chemicals that they're using in the bags to repel fat. So that's not great for our pets either. So we really need to be thinking about, yes, think of diet, definitely make dietary changes to a more species appropriate whole food diet, because as I've just shown you, a lot of commercial pet foods that come in plastic bags are contaminated already. So, it's just adding to that body burden of chemical contamination. But have a look around your home. Have you had that dog's bed for 5 years? And is it the type of dog bed where you can't actually remove the stuffing to wash it? So if that's the case, it might be time for a new dog bed. How often do you vacuum? I think air filters are amazing for reducing indoor air pollution. Look at the toys that you're using. A lot of plastic toys, particularly those coming from overseas, they're not regulated, and it's been shown that many of them can contain heavy metals and other toxic chemicals that our dogs ingest as they chew on them and suck on them. Look at the type of food bowls and water bowls that you're using with your pets. Try and avoid plastic as much as possible. Plastic, release known endocrine disruptors, which can be hugely damaging to our pets long term. And to us, that's why we should never heat up plastic in the microwave. Don't do that. And then, so yeah, lots of environmental changes that we can make for our pets, even where they sleep at night. You know, do they sleep in the bedroom? Do they sleep on carpet? That can all have a huge impact on particularly allergy symptoms. And I hear it quite regularly, you know, pet owners will say to me, you know, when I take my dog on holidays, their symptoms go away. And when I bring them back home, the symptoms return. So that's obviously, you know, an obvious example of something in the home environment is triggering that dog. I think it's great, like not bathing your dog too regularly because that can also sort of be very damaging to the skin barrier, but wiping your dog down, you know, at least once daily to remove anything that's sticking to their coat. So that again is reducing the body burden of, you know, pollens and dust and chemicals. You might do it towards the end of the day and before they go to bed, so they're not then transferring all of what's on their coat to their bed that they're going to be sleeping on and breathing sort of in overnight. Other things that we can do to support our pets for long-term health and wellness, things like the pure milk thistle. That's amazing for removing toxins from the body. The organic super greens does a similar role. So particularly chlorella is known to chelate or bind to heavy metals and help remove those from the body, supporting the immune system generally. Things like pure colostrum is really lovely and gentle, and I think just general gut support is a must for all dogs. So, you know, that's where the Gut Protect would come into things. And like I said, species appropriate diet doesn't have to be complicated. You know, I use the Big Dog raw food patties for my dogs because it's quick and it's easy, and I know they're getting everything they need without all of the artificial rubbish that will often be present in commercial kibbles in particular. So we've got an amazing allergy guide on the website. So if you go to canineceuticals.com.au, look for the resources tab, go to the guide section, you can download the allergy guide. It has got heaps of tips, like diet tips, environmental tips, supplement tips for how you can manage a dog with just chronic, I mean, particularly skin issues, but it's sort of relevant to any sort of health condition that a dog might be suffering from. So, you know, the more that we can reduce the burden on our dog's immune systems, the better they're going to be. And if you're not sure what the next step to take is for you and your pet, please reach out to us at info@canineceuticals.com.au and we would love to help and guide you there. So thank you for another week of Thursday's Thoughts, and I'll see you next week.